Okay, so one of the first question is what exactly I'm doing here. I'm sure this place, I don't imagine there's so much Lashon Harah over here, so why exactly am I talking about it? The answer is that a person is that Shmirat HaLashon, guarding one's tongue, is an art, and there's some things a person might not be aware of, some things people might forget. Dale Carnegie wrote that he reads his books all the time. Even though he wrote the books, he can forget it if he doesn't read over his books and go over those principles. Lashon Harah is the same way. These laws of Shmirat HaLashon, by going over it again and again, one is on their toes and is able to apply them better. Because one's speech is one of the most important tools. Someone was just telling me that he was in the gym, had a debate with someone, what's the most powerful muscle of one's body? He said, it's one's arm, He said one's tongue is the most powerful. Because one can accomplish the most, and it says, Mavet v'chaim biyad halashon, life and death are in the hands of the tongue. And one wants life, use your tongue. You can learn Torah, do mitzvot, you can get the best life in this world and the next. And if one wants death, one can say Lashon Harah, and the Gemara says it causes death to three people. It kills the person you're talking about, it kills the speaker, and it kills the listener, the person who heard it and accepted it. So we're going to go over the basic laws, some of the reasons behind it, and then some applications. So what is Lashon Harah? Lashon Harah is saying something derogatory about someone else, even if it's true. If it's not true, it's not Lashon Harah. It's called Motzi Shemra, which is defamation, which is even worse. But if it's true, it's Lashon Harah. What falls in Lashon Harah? The rule is anything which, if it gets passed along from one person to another, it can cause someone damage. It can cause someone loss of reputation, disgrace, someone to feel bad, cause him pain. He might feel pain if someone found out about this. And anything in that category would be Lashon Harah. Now, sometimes, like even talking about a business and saying something, I went to this restaurant and it was really, I had to wait a long time, that might also be Lashon Harah. Now we're going to learn about sometimes one's allowed to say Lashon Harah if it's for a good benefit. We're going to learn that not everything which is Lashon Harah is really forbidden. Sometimes it's permitted. You really have to say it to protect someone. But one has to know what it applies to. It applies to whether one speaks it or one implies something with one's mouth, with one's eyes, one hints, salutes, anything like that would also be Lashon Harah. And even if your father asks you, or your Rebbe, your friend, someone cajoles you, please, no, it depends, no matter what. One cannot say. Now, sometimes what Lashon Harah is or is not depends on the circumstances. For instance, if Lashon Harah saying about talking about someone's strength, right? Say this guy is a weak guy. So if he's a scientist and a research physicist, or like Bruce or something like that, then it might not be if he can't hit a home run, maybe Bruce actually plays a good game of baseball, I don't know, but it wouldn't be an issue. But if you say about someone who's an athletic guy or someone who works at a factory and say he's weak constitution, that would be Lashon Harah. It might be killing him, might be bad for his livelihood. So it depends on the person. Now, there's something called rechilus, which is another type, which is it's a different type. It's a type of gossiping, which is you tell someone what someone said about them, or someone said your window is broken. This person damaged your window. You tell someone you create animosity in one person and another, even if it was okay, even if no one did anything wrong, but the person would agree that he said such and such about something else. But you creating animosity to two people is called rechilus, and it's also forbidden. Now, why is but we're going to go to that sometimes Lashon Harah, we said, is permitted. You can say it. You should say it, and that is it's for a positive benefit. And the classic example is we have a fast called Tzom Gedalia, where the governor of Israel, appointed by Nebuchadnezzar after the destruction of the temple, there were people who were visiting him, and they said, this person who was visiting him, his name was Netanel, I think maybe. He said, he's a bad guy, you should watch yourself, he's gonna try and kill you. And he was a big shot. He said, no, Lashon Harah, I can't accept. And the guy went, and his people actually murdered him, and murdered a lot of people with him. And we have a whole fasting on the calendar because of that. And that was not correct. You should have to not believe. You have to accept. You have to be careful. When something is to protect you, you have to say it, and you have to listen to it and take precautions. Now, what's important to know is even when you can allow to believe, and even when you have to listen to Lashon Harah, it's for a good purpose. It's to protect you. You cannot, under most circumstances, you can't believe it to be a fact. Chavetz Chaim says this, is that if there's only one person, in a Jewish court, you need two witnesses to accept something as a fact. You might want to guard yourself and protect yourself, to go ahead and accept as a fact, and this person, you assume like this guy is a real terrible person because, such and such. Who says that that's true? Why is the person who told you more believable than the person who he's talking about? So even though in case of Twilis, believing it is a whole different story. One should act as if it was true, but know that it might not completely be true. Now let's go through some cases of Twilis. So let's say of a certain store which you think that their prices are much too high, they're overcharging people, or their weights are not honest, and you see some of your friend go inside. This friend is very naive, believing person, and he's just gonna go right there and just he's gonna be cheated and overcharged. So this is a very important. It's a classic case, the Lashon Harah he talks about. Meaning, over here, you shouldn't just say. Should you say, well, it's Lashon Harah, I'm not going to say anything? No, because he's going to lose money. But again, you can't just rush to conclusions. And one of the most important points here is that you have to step back and think about it before you open your mouth. So the various details which one has to go through in order to, let's say in this case, which he talks about, which is
requirements.
So several requirements which you have to do. And I'm going to go through in a list. He has 5 different requirements. And just as an example, to other cases to know what the requirements are.
But timing is important too, because in that situation,
right.
If he tells him before he purchases
right.
it's one thing, but if
right.
he tells him afterwards, says the exact
right.
same thing afterwards,
right.
it is Lashon Harah.
Absolutely.
So.
That's which is exactly the point. That meaning, all I'm talking about is before he went and bought it. If he already
right.
bought it, and it's too late for whatever reason, he can't return it for whatever the reason is. You shouldn't tell him. You shouldn't tell him that he was overcharged.
But even if he can
right.
return it, it's a problem because he may go back and cause a dispute between him and that shop owner.
Right.
And go in and tell him the guy's measures are not right.
Right.
He may go in and
right.
essentially attack the guy while asking for his refund. So
right.
you got to be very
right.
careful with that.
Preventing him from going back and repeating it.
That's the whole point. You've got to consider all the possibilities.
Right.
What's
right.
That's the thing. It's not just one simple solution that comes
right.
out of it. There's
Absolutely.
ultimately so many
yeah.
different possibilities
right.
of what could happen.
So when the case is that Gemara says if someone bought something, you should praise it. You should tell him it's a good thing that he bought and everything, even if it's really not.
Cognitive dissonance.
Because you should make him feel good about what he purchased, and in that case you shouldn't. If he's nothing to do about it, you're just creating animosity to
right.
people for no reason.
Right.
Now, before he goes into the shop, here we go. First of all, don't jump to conclusions. Is it really bad? Is it really overcharged? Like maybe last time you checked out the market, it was 2 months ago. Maybe things changed. Maybe there was inflation. So one thing, don't rush to conclusions. Number 2, don't exaggerate. You shouldn't say he rips everyone off and his bad product. Don't say more than the truth. Say as much as you need to say. 3, your intention should be you want to help out. You want to help. That's why you're talking. Meaning, if you have to be in the same line of business, and part of your talk is, you want him to go to your store, or you just want you don't like the guy. You want to get at him. Then it's forbidden. The heter is you have to have, and this is the whole thing. Our intention should be for a positive, constructive benefit, and it will be that benefit, right? And sometimes you have to think: is he going to listen to you? Or if he's not going to listen to you, he won't believe you, then you're just telling him and there's no purpose. And let's say, and also, can you do this with another way? Can you get him to avoid trouble without saying that? Could you say, I know a place there's a better deal over here, and steer him to go to the better place without telling him that this guy overcharges people? You should do that. It's a as needed basis. You can say Lashon Harah. And the last thing is think about what will he do when you tell him that. Meaning, if you tell him that, will he start putting that in newspapers and whatever? Maybe he should. It depends. Again, it depends on the case. He shouldn't go and do something which is really wrong. You can't cause someone to lose out. You can't make someone be damaged. If he's going to, and if he already made up to buy it, and he's going to just break his contract for no reason, and he shouldn't be. He should. You should make sure that what's going to come out is going to be okay. Which, now, in the case of someone wants to go into partnership with someone else, right? And so you think the person is not the partner, a prospective partner, is not trustworthy. He doesn't have it, not responsible. So if he won't believe you, again, if he's not going to believe you, then you shouldn't tell him, because then if something does happen and they get into a fight, I'll say, yeah, this person who told me about you, he said the right thing, which is going to be rechilas. He's going to be telling me about you to the other person. So only if it's going to be a benefit. But what's interesting is, another fascinating thing in this case is, not everything which you can't say is if someone asks you for advice, let's say, this person, this partnership, his financial situation isn't good. So you shouldn't tell him that, because maybe he'll be a good partner nonetheless. But if he says, what's your advice for me? Do you recommend going into this partnership? You can't give advice with something you wouldn't personally do. If you personally wouldn't go into partnership with that circumstances, you can't advise him to do that. You might not be able to tell him that, if he doesn't ask you. If he asks your opinion, your recommendation, you have to tell him what you would like to be told yourself. You shouldn't put someone in this position that you yourself wouldn't want to be. And so, something else is avak rechilas, even the dust of rechilas, which is saying things which is not even Lashon Harah, it's close to it. Like, you praise someone in front of his enemies. You're going to cause the other person to say something back about him. Or you say, I don't, I know this person 5 years ago, and no one could believe the way he is today from the way he was back then. You don't actually say something, but you imply something.
It's amazing how far he's come.
Right.
Is Lashon Harah.
Right. So these are all cases, and I'm going to conclude. This is the conclusion of what I'm going to say about the applications. Why is Lashon Harah so bad? You find that it's one of the most important things, one of the most important mitzvahs to do.
The reason for galus.
Right. The reason for galus, the reason why we went into exile was, first of all, the spies spoke Lashon Harah about Eretz Yisrael, and also the baseless hatred in the Second Temple caused the exile from destruction of the Second Temple. And the Gemara says that someone who always talks Lashon Harah, it's equivalent to doing the three cardinal sins: idolatry, murder, and immorality. Someone who does this all the time. It's a really heinous crime, and one wouldn't expect it to be so bad. It's only your mouth, after all. But spiritually, a person's mouth is one of the most holiest parts of someone's body. It's called Kodesh Kadashim. The holy of holies of a person is what he says. I think the Vilna Gaon says that. And every word is important. One can build, destroy. One can build someone's life. In a spiritual sense, I'll just say, and the reward of Lashon Harah is great as well. The Vilna Gaon quotes a midrash: for every second that someone holds back and doesn't say Lashon Harah, he merits a light which is so sweet and so amazing that no angel or creature can estimate, how amazing that reward is, just as from not saying Lashon Harah for 1 second. So I can imagine the power of, and studying Lashon Harah is a tremendous sigula. It's a merit for success and salvation and in one's own life is studying these laws. It's the Manchester Rosh Yeshiva who created a calendar for studying this book said he says he doesn't know of a family who studied these laws on a regular basis that didn't merit a salvation in their own personal life. So it's tremendous merit to study these things. I will just conclude with two points. First of all, just because someone said Lashon Harah doesn't mean there's truth to it. Meaning, we said you can't believe Lashon Harah. You might think, well, maybe if someone said it, there's no smoke without fire. Maybe if someone said Lashon Harah, maybe there's something to it.
There must be something behind it, right? Yeah?
So I saw that unless it's partially learned about Korach, that Korach said Moshe Rabbeinu, he's this power-hungry person. He's stealing all the positions for himself. Moshe was the humblest of men, and as was Aaron. The people he was accusing were the paragons of humility. And he himself was seeking power for himself. Sometimes when someone says Lashon Harah about someone else, they're expressing their own weaknesses and defects onto someone else. Kol posel bumo posel, the sages say. If someone puts a defect into someone else, he's guilty of the same thing. So just because someone says Lashon Harah doesn't mean there's any truth at all. It could be it's totally not true. And the one reason why the subject that supports Lashon Harah is that Hashem is a merciful Father. He loves every person more than anyone else, more than they love themselves, more than their parents. And Hashem rules the world. Hashem, if a person, even though Hashem knows everything a person does, Hashem won't necessarily punish a person for what they do. Hashem will give him the best approach for them to help them develop. Hashem will be patient for them. Hashem's our Father. Hashem doesn't rush to punish people. But Hashem set up the world that He rules the world as a king, and as He has like a certain, Hashem, it's not a world. The world has certain rules, has a certain, there's a direction to the world. And if there's a prosecutor, a heavenly prosecutor, this is more like the Kabbalistic reasons why Lashon Harah is so important and why it's so damaging. That when Hashem follows what people do. People are merciful down here, Hashem will have mercy up there in a tremendous way. Someone does a kindness to someone else, Hashem does great kindness to the world. But it works the other way. That if someone says Lashon Harah about someone else, the heavenly prosecutor is given permission to also say Lashon Harah. Who does he say Lashon Harah to? Hashem. And so by a person saying Lashon Harah down there, he creates a kitrug, a prosecution, that Hashem doesn't want to pay any attention to people's sins. But when Hashem made it that when a prosecutor is allowed to prosecute, there's a judgment there, and it can cause tremendous damage by someone the prosecutor prosecute. So when the generation of people didn't do Lashon Harah, it says in the generation of Achav, they went out to battle and they won every war, even though they were idolaters, they were evil people. But they didn't say Lashon Harah about each other. So they won all their battles because the prosecutor had nothing to do and no one was talking Lashon Harah. But in the days of Shaul, who was a righteous king, they lost battles because people were not good with Lashon Harah. You find with Doeg, who said Lashon Harah about King David, they weren't so great with Lashon Harah. But when people don't do Lashon Harah, people are together, then they can do the worst sins. They do idolatry, and Hashem will have mercy on them. And the positive thing, when it speaks good about someone else, they speak good about him above. Hashem desires people who always are trying to judge people favorably, which is another point here. If someone judges people favorably, they won't come to Lashon Harah, and they judge him favorably as well. But we all learn to grow and speak in ways. Hashem says, "My children, what do I ask of you? But that you should love each other, you should honor each other, and you should respect each other."
la 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 la